to the behavioral model meeting for April 6th. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my camera. I hope you guys can all see my screen.
Yes.
So what we covered the last go around was this huge BMV2 for service tunnel. And we had pull request 308, and I captured a few snips of the different changes to the different areas, here, and, just different snips that Marian showed us last time. And I believe I sent these out in meeting notes. And so that's what we did last time, the Q&A around that PR. And it was a pretty big one. And then today we were going to talk about PR 358, which I just had it up on the screen there. This one here, support SCI attribute generation from annotations. So and then if you guys have something else, we can tail on after that, if that works for you. Can I get a head nod or a yes?
Good.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to stop presenting and let this be Marian. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll start with the background why we are doing this. Initially, there was the need to add a bit more metadata to site headers that explain relations between objects and stuff like that. Mainly it was for the CRM purposes or critical resource monitoring to help explain in which cases we need to also provide more data to study availability queries to understand how much resources we have left. But adding this metadata, my initial attempt at this was to just try and guess what are the rules for that. But that's not really that's not something that we can continue going that road for a long time, because there will be more and more rules, and they will all be embedded in code for the header generation. So we want to move away from that approach. So this is the first iteration of that. I'm introducing a new method for generating SCI attributes for keys and for action parameters from annotations. So the reason is that if you put this stuff directly in P4 code in the form of annotations, let me find that. Yeah, so here are two examples. So even three examples. First one would be, we want to have this, for example, this parameter VNI value. We want to find out what its type is. So it's it can be derived from the from the size, but it's not always true. Sometimes it has some special type. Like I will be adding annotations to further keys and parameters. So let me give you another example. So in this case, this VNI has SCI type of SCI U32. But what if we had, let me just view this file. What if we had something like this? How can we guess that this is the MAC address if what is passed to P4 JSON file is only the size, meaning that it is just saying that this parameter is 48 bits long. So previously we had a rule if the value is 48 has a size of 48 bits, it's always MAC address. So we would need to put these kind of things, and also like if it's I don't know, 32 bits, it might be an IP address. So it gets complicated more and more every time. So what we want to do is to be able to kind of do same thing as inside to define all of the metadata right over here. And the example would be like that. So we have a parameter, so we can add all of the needed metadata within the SCI structured annotation. Another example would be this one, SCI IP address family attribute or parameter that we set for the ACL group, saying that this is either V6 ACL or V4 ACL group. So how would you derive this type from 32 bits? We tell the API generating script directly the type, and we can also add another metadata like, is this a resource type? Saying that yes, it's a resource type, so that when we will query availability, we can query separately for V4 and V6 and stuff like that.
Sorry, Kristina, just a couple of questions.
Yeah.
So yeah, Marian, sorry. The question I have is, what is resource type signify here?
Yeah. So this is coming from SCI APIs. It's a tag. Let me just open an example. So if you go to SCI APIs and open stuff like so regular SCI route entry has an attribute, for instance, IP address family, which is a read-only attribute, but it also has this kind of tag saying that this is a resource type, meaning that it is a classifier, so that you can pass this attribute when you're querying how many routes the system has left that you can program.
Yeah. So you have some hardware resource. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So you can provide a more detailed query and ask for specific resource within the object type.
Okay, got it. Now, the second thing I just basically want to ask is, when you define or when you specify a attribute, that is only applicable to a definition that just follows right after that? Or what if I had, let's say, two parameters here, both of them should basically take the same annotation? Can I define one and then be applicable to both of them, or do I need to replicate this thing, for the second one that follows immediately after this?
Can you give an example? I don't really understand.
Okay, so for example, for example, the previous one in the VM VNI, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say in the VM VNI in the previous one, so just the one below that. So VM VNI, yeah. So basically, you have a SCI type says SCI uint32, right? Now,
yeah, it only applies to VNI. That's it.
Right, but let's say just below that you had another PIT24, right? Defined, and you wanted that SCI uint32 also to be, applicable to that one as well, right?
Yeah.
Would you have to do it repeat again, or what would happen?
So annotation is for one parameter or one key. So,
okay.
Yeah, and by the way, this is a P4 language syntax specification. It's not something we have control over.
Okay.
And the annotations bind to the identifier following it. But if there's a lot of them, or if it gets messy, you can always start using macros. But then that presents its own problems, right?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think now I can see more better, because now I see this thing that when you define this classifier for the annotation, there is no comma after that. It just follows.
Yeah, right,
You know,
exactly.
Yeah.
It's
So,
like
okay.
a documentation over. This is like a
Yeah.
documentation over this one. So I'm trying to follow like in here it's better outlined because this is a doxygen comment, right?
Right.
Over this attribute, but it is semantically meaningful. Like all this
Right.
text means something. Same
Right.
thing
Right.
here. So this is our documentation, but it's also a meaningful thing from which we generate an API. So I plan on first.
You know
I plan on.
what threw me off, Marian, is because since they are both in separate lines, I mean, it would, I don't know, but I mean, it would probably make more of a readable part if you had both annotation as well as the type, sorry, the definition of the variable on the same
Yeah,
line.
maybe you're right. Maybe like I can just put them in the same line if it's
Exactly.
clearer.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right, so I plan on adding annotations to all the keys and parameters in the following PRs, but this one is mostly about the infrastructure, and this is just examples how they can be used. We have two parameters. We have also key. Oh, another thing that you can specify. So the annotation itself is a key value data structure. So you can expand that. And so, for instance, if our attribute is referencing another object, like in this case, we are annotating this ACL group ID. The name is taken from macro, but basically the key is ACL group ID. So the thing is that this is an object type, and previously again we had to like derive the fact that this is an object type from how it is named and derive the object type from the name itself. So we want to alleviate all of that. So we'll just have object type specified directly. So it says objects because theoretically it could be more than one inside, but really in our case, for now it's just one. But I left an option, like you can do it. You can provide more than one if it will be necessary. So it can be extended. So these were the examples of how to use them. But what actually happens is that we have one simple routine added to this generation code that simply you provide it with two things. First one is the pointer to the portion of the JSON file that describes either a key or a parameter. Second is a dictionary that will be filled with all the data. And it just parses the JSON, retrieves all of this information like you could see in type, as resource type, tag, objects, and moving on, the more stuff we will need to add to the documentation, like some other things, maybe like special handling for enums, what would be the type or field or stuff like that. So all of that will be added in here. So it's very easy to extend. I just take another key, copy it to the attribute dictionary, and that's it. So that's about how we parse this stuff from the JSON, and it's used in two places for now, which I plan to deprecate at some point when we will fully move to that implementation. So previously what we had is Basically, as I said, we derived everything manually. Now we have an option. If we have structured annotations, we take all the information from there. But the old way is still available until we fully migrate to the annotations. So this is for keys and for parameters as well. And another thing that I had to do just to keep everything simple, I normalized the naming of those dictionaries for keys. So they had stuff like key type, LPM type, list type. It's not needed. It can all be just called type, meaning a type in sci, because we still have a match type to figure out what is the match. So that's another thing that you'll see in this code, but that's just unification of dictionary keys that we generate APIs from. So now attributes and keys will have dictionaries looking the same way because both of them result in the same attribute, and attribute inside doesn't really reflect if it was a key or an action parameter. Yeah, so my plan is to first merge that, and then I will keep extending all of the tables and actions with this metadata, and we'll see maybe even more information will be added. So it should be very, very like intuitive for anyone. If there is a new P4 code added, you will be able to just follow the example, just add this annotation, provide site type, maybe provide other things like if it's object or other needed information to generate proper APIs.
Yeah, Marian, I think this is really good. I'm really happy that you finally got to this. I think it's a really good step forward to make the P4 code the single source of truth and not have heuristics buried in a magical code generator. The one thing I would ask is if we maybe start a README, even if it's just really slim, that just lists the annotations and their proper usage. Or
yeah, you're right. I will
guide.
add it to this pull request. You are right. I will list all of the available annotations that you can use. Yeah.
Yeah, and at one time we talked about kind of a style guide or some kind of something that describes how the P4 needs to be written in order to produce the result. And this might actually be that. One time there was a little more, let's say, hidden rules that you knew.
There were rules. Yeah, it was rules based. Now we can go away from that.
Okay, good. This is better. And just for people to know, this annotation technique is used in a lot of different places in a lot of open source projects like Sonic Pins, etc. Stratum used it. It does make the code a little harder to read, but that's the downside. But it's not that big of a downside.
Yeah, so if you don't have questions, I got like two more things I wanted to bring up about other PRs. So there is, let's start with a simpler one. So the bulk add remove, I have force pushed it again to make all of the CI/CD checks pass, so we can merge this one.
Good.
Yeah, if there are any comments, please leave in there.
It's been a while. Is that one any issue? Have you synced it to main lately? Are you concerned because it's quite old and things creep in?
I can do that, but it is very, very contained and self-contained because it just implements two functions in the CPP file. So I'm not really worried about it, but I can sync to latest master. And also, where was it? This one I was trying to align to the DPDK backend. This is the service tunnel from last week. Still has an issue. I don't know, maybe Andy, I will need your help to look at that. This kind of code compiles for BMV2, but the DPDK backend throws an error that this kind of expression is not implemented in the compiler.
Yeah, I think I added an if def near that code. I noticed it when I was doing some changes. It handles if statements, general if statements inside of action bodies, but not multiplication. And so these I just converted into simple if statements.
So if is now supported. Okay, got it. So I will fix that. It's for NVGRE. Maybe I'll need to repeat that, or rather, copy.
I'll find a link to specific lines of code that show this and send it to you.
Yeah,
in chat,
yeah.
Or,
I think VXLAN. If you fixed it for VXLAN, I can just take it as an example.
Yeah, it's an annoying difference.
Okay,
but pretty easy to handle with an if def.
That's it. Thanks.
Okay, so you want me to merge 246 after about a half hour, is what you're saying?
246.
The one we just were on a minute ago, where you were going to merge sync to
So
main.
just in case, let me. Oops, that's the wrong one. So just in case, let me first probably, as Chris mentioned, I will sync it to the latest, and then I will let you know.
Okay, sounds good. And,
Quick question.
Yeah.
So is it true that you may have already said this and I missed it, sorry. You are relying on like open source P4C, taking these key and action parameter annotations and putting them in a P4info file or some other output file today?
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay, makes sense.
And Andy, that's in the front end, by the way.
Yep.
Yep. It's been in for a couple of years.
Yeah, I know you were instrumental, industry luminary Chris Summers in making that happen.
I'm so happy. This is the first usage I've seen of the key valued form of this. So, yay!
Yeah.
That's the kind of work that got you appointed co-chair of the P4 API working group.
Yes.
You guys might find this funny. I won a Azure Linux Champ award. And I'm like, do I do Linux? Apparently I do. It's this project. Yeah, that was funny. I was surprised to be nominated because I didn't know. So it was pretty funny.
Yay, good for you.
Yay me. Yeah.
Another any good press you get internally in Microsoft just makes us all look better.
Yeah, exactly. So what was I going to say? Andy, I saw your note in the chat window here. I'm not sure if everybody else saw it, but it looks like people are working on the P4C DPDK backend as a lower pry, just to let everyone know. Because we were going to see if we were going to compile in that. So.
Yep, it compiles fine. But the next step you'd hope is it loads into the DPDK software switch, which it doesn't. So peeling the onion here.
Yep.
The people that work on the open source P4C DPDK backend appreciate the interesting new test cases you're providing them.
That's good. Good. Always happy to be helpful. Okay. So does anyone else have anything, or should we end for the day? I can't seem to wait 7. Oh, go ahead, Reshma.
Sorry. When Marian was displaying the 358 PR. I saw the ENI attributes over there. Just curious if the ENI table takes in the direction field at this time as key.
ENI, no, definitely
It
not.
doesn't. To basically, in terms of trying to determine, the table lookups, etc., which could be different for inbound and outbound ACLs. For ACLs mainly.
Well, the attributes themselves or parameters allow you to separately define ACLs for inbound and ACLs for outbound.
Okay,
So
maybe
it's
we
one
can discuss
ENI,
that.
but ACLs are provided for both directions separately.
Right. Yeah, that will add more, a little bit more burden on the ACLs. Just trying to see if that can be alleviated using ENI table, but we can discuss it next time if needed. Or I can ping you offline as well.
I mean, ACL and ACL groups, all that stuff is ACL groups, ACL rules. That's totally independent of ENI and directions, right?
Any directions, right?
I mean, they don't care, right? Now, when you apply it, that's why you decide ENI and direction. But that's the only place the direction should be set on, and I don't think we should change that.
I actually agree that I don't want to add direction to ENI. Yeah, just from the ACL standpoint, if the ACLs could be different rules for inbound and outbound for same connection, right?
But that'd be then a different rule within a different group.
Right.
Yeah,
You
I
have
think
flexibility
probably-
there, right?
Definitely,
I
that
think
flexibility.
maybe another way to put it is that for a given packet, you are applying either inbound ACL or outbound ACLs, and the metadata that you carry, do you need to carry both inbound and outbound ACL group IDs? So that's why given ENI lookup, do you need to assign both inbound and outbound ACL groups in the ENI attributes? Because at given time, it's only one that's going to be executing. So I think that's where probably more of a question is about. I don't know if I was clear.
Yeah, I think if we have run out of time, then we can discuss this next time. Kristina.
Okay, sure. I will write that down. Okay, then I will end the call today. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Marian, for the PR. And I'll wait to hear from you on merging and doing all that. Thank you everyone for coming.
Thanks, Chris.